Hey everybody, welcome to episode 17 of the I Can Fly podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeg Coughlin, and today not joined by our co-host, Morgan Hoffman. However, we are joined by my great friend and mentor, Chet Scott. Chet founded a leadership practice here in Columbus, Ohio in the early 2000s called Built to Lead. He and his fellow builders work with entrepreneurs, founders, leadership teams, and athletes, most namely with the Ohio State University Athletic Department, where I first came across Built to Lead while I played golf there years ago. However, I was reintroduced to Chet just about a year ago and started formally working with him on a lot of the topics that we discover in this conversation today. The biggest one being that I wanted to hit with him is the journey of finding one's purpose in life. And beyond that, really more importantly, how do we go about executing it? I think today, in this world of such active social media use, we're so often caught keeping up with the Joneses and comparing ourselves, and can very quickly end up leading a life that isn't authentically what we wish for in any way. And the work that Built to Lead does and the conversations that we talk about today help you rediscover who it is that you authentically are and how you can go about leading and living a life that expresses just that. So I'm really excited and confident that the lessons and topics that we dove into today will not only be incredibly inflecting, but also lead to great self-discovery and hopefully action from there as well. So first, I'll lead with a quote that came about from Chet today in the conversation, which was, "You can do what is easy now, and life will get hard. Or you can do what's hard now, and life will get easier." First, I want to lead with the purpose statement of Built to Lead, which I think greatly aligns with the mission here at I Can Fly that Morgan and I have had since the beginning, which is to have inspirational conversations where we can open our minds and share in the lessons of life, and ultimately each searching for our best life. Here it is. Together, we awaken, challenge, and transform a few individuals, teams, and leaders from a lone toward all one. One, distinct and deeply connected, becoming built to lead. Together, we transform, always together. Please enjoy this episode with Chet Scott. Thanks. Thank you very much for being here with me today. This is a real treat for me. Felt very blessed to get to know you over the last year. I'm sure we'd crossed paths actually many times in our life, from playing out of the same golf course here in Dublin and Muirfield Village, and probably the halls of Ohio State back in the day a little bit with the work that you do at OSU.
Yeah.
But it's really been a treat to get to know each other and work together. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today because you and I are in the practice right now of working together in really a personal development fashion. I first met you through a mutual friend, actually through his podcast, Brett Kaufman, on the Gravity podcast, and listening to his episodes with you.
Yeah.
And so, though we're going to kind of spawn in a lot of different directions today, the general subject that has been coming back for me, and as you know, is something that I'm in a deep search for within myself, is really finding our purpose in life. And this journey that I feel like not only am I on individually, but I'm looking across my peer set and so many of my friends, and by the way, in a vast age range, that are in this time where they're searching for meaning in their life. And so that's kind of a greater subject matter that I'm excited to keep diving into today with you, is how does one come across finding their purpose in life? And we'll touch and go through that generally throughout the day, but I think just as a way of getting to know you a little bit more, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about who Chet Scott is and how eventually you came into starting Built to Lead.
Well, who am I? I could talk about that way too long.
Yeah.
So I'm a primary Jayhawk, secondary Buckeye. I'm a father to 4 adult children now. Married to Miss 42 years this year. Son of Chet and Marie, a couple that survived the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression, a doctor and a nurse. I'm a friend to a few, an acquaintance to many. And a guy who stumbled into, like most of us do, who stumbled into purpose on a path that was pretty satisfying, but it wasn't fulfilling a purpose. But I stumbled into it the way most of us do. And I was just lucky enough to be tuned in to how that felt and noticed that that felt different than my other whys previous to that moment. And it's funny that first of all, I believe that when we talk about purpose, we can talk about that for frickin' ever.
Yeah.
I love that topic.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we find a singular purpose as much as we discover core purposes. Multiple whys for like what gets us up in the morning, for our work, and what gets us to come home at night for our life. And what gets us to do things in the community, in the church, in a charity. There's the ones, if you're going to sustain them, they're rooted in a core purpose of yours. And so, like, I'm still discovering mine. But when you say, like, how did I end up here? It was very much discovering a purpose for my work. And I was 34. I had a great job. I was running sales and service for CompuServe, which was a Columbus company, tech company in Columbus, if you believe that.
Sure, yeah.
Back in the day, Jeff Wilkins started this baby, and it was a small business when I joined them after being at IBM for a year, right out of school. And IBM told me to move. I wanted to keep my job, and I said, I'm getting married. I really don't want to go to Pittsburgh. And they said, well, good, you're fired. So that was my introduction to the business world.
Wow.
I didn't make it through just training even. And I said, man, this is what the corporate world is like. I didn't even have a chance to prove myself. And they were like, move here or you're fired. And so luckily I kind of felt it coming. And so I'd already been checking out other tech companies. And so literally the next week I started at CompuServe. And I would spend 20 years there and 10 years kind of working my way up, and then 10 years running all of sales and service for the commercial division. And 3 years into that stint of being the guy, if you will, being on the executive committee I was on the executive committee at 29, which I didn't have any idea. I didn't know what I was doing. But at 34, our CEO said, hey, we need to start growing people the way we're growing profits. And it was in an executive committee. I can remember like it was yesterday. And I wasn't paying attention. I was thinking about my team and what we had to do to get the next deal. And I looked up and he was looking at me. And I'm like, you don't want to send me. I said, send Judy. She runs HR, that's her job. I don't have time to go. And he said, that's exactly why you're going. And I'm like, no, I don't have time. And he goes, this is why you're going. So I went. And in 1 week's time, where they videotaped you, this is again, 93, seems archaic, it's so long ago. They videotaped you behind one-way mirrors. They gave you these problems, leadership challenges to solve with strangers that you just had met that Sunday. By Monday, you're working as a leadership team to solve theoretical problems, and they're observing you behind one-way mirrors and studying your personality, studying how well you listen, studying how well you use logic versus emotion. I mean, just all. And then at the end of that week, they give you a tape that they'd put together with a psychologist with your personality profile to walk you through this like 3-hour tape of what they observed about you. And I remember walking out of that going, I want to do what those people do. That was really cool. Like I went back to the CEO and I said, I'll never leave here to go to a competitor. I'm going to leave here and start my own company and build leaders like what I just went through. Because that lit me up. And so in that moment, I discovered my purpose for work. And it was like clear as a bell. And then I've been refining it ever since. It took me 9 years to get the courage to leave.
Right.
So I discovered it at 34. I departed on my hero's journey of my purpose, if you will.
Sure.
9 years later.
Wow.
So I look at that and I go, I was kind of cowardly.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to make sure everything was set to where I couldn't fail before I took the leap, which the reality is there's always a risk.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was very risk averse.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to pursue my purpose, but I wanted to make sure my family wouldn't get stung.
Sure.
You know, that I wouldn't lose this lifestyle. And it's funny, as I do the work now with others, I find that a very common human condition.
Totally. That's what was going through my head as you were saying that.
So that's how I discovered my work purpose, and I'm still discovering it.
Yeah.
But I know that I know God put me here to do this work. I know it in my bones. It gives me this kind of juice that money can't give you, position can't give you, power can't give you.
Yeah.
But purpose and meaning can.
Yeah.
And so I know it, and I know I've still got a lot of work to do to live it out.
Sure. Yeah, I love the way you describe that time in your life, though. I mean, when the spark hits you, almost in an awakening fashion, that there's a greater purpose for you, right? There's something that's illuminated you. I love, you use the word like you get lit up, right?
Yes.
And we'll use that word in our work together.
Yeah.
When that happens, I think it becomes increasingly hard to not look towards it.
Yes.
Right? And so you say like it took you 9 years to eventually walk away and truly start this thing.
Yeah.
I bet there wasn't many days in those 9 years, though, that you didn't think about it.
Not at all. And in
Right.
fact, what I did is I didn't just think about it. I started doing the work for them.
Yeah.
So I started our own leadership institute.
Yeah.
And I was just mastering the craft really on CompuServe's dime.
Yeah.
They were getting a benefit of having me learning how to do this and leading our teams through it.
Right.
And I was getting the benefit of getting the reps without having to put the shingle out, and so it kind of worked for both.
Sure.
But I wasn't just thinking about it. I couldn't not do it.
But I guess again, to come back to that subject matter of finding purpose in your life, like if you are someone that maybe has been lit up by something, right? Yeah. And you're either in a job that you're needing to stay in, obviously, to pay your bills and to create the lifestyle that you have and support your family, whatever the situation may be.
Yeah.
But you're having that curiosity, right? You have that illumination in you that you feel like there's this bigger reason why I'm here, right? How does someone start to look in that direction and act on it?
Tune into how it feels. I'd say that'd be my CCD counsel. The enemy of discovering purpose and meaning is focusing on responsibility and obligation. So I'll give you some stats. I just gave this to a dude today. It blew me away. He resonated it back. When you're in kindergarten and going up to elementary, kids, by far, at that age, want to be firemen, policemen, and teachers. When they get to middle school and they start to understand, like, cops don't get paid much, teachers less, and firemen, man, smoky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they go, doctors and lawyers start to be the dream. I think I'm going to be a doc or a lawyer. Middle school, somewhere that creeps in to somewhere around high school. By the time they get out of high school, our worldly system, especially in America, has them, well, they didn't like chemistry or they didn't like stats, so doctor and lawyer's not out. That's out of the question.
Yeah.
And so now they just settle for, where can I find work that will make the kind of money to support whatever my lifestyle is?
Yeah.
And I shared that with one one of the head coaches that I work with today. And he looked at me in the middle of the practice and he said, I wanted to be a fireman when I was in elementary school. Mm. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a doctor.
Just follow the stats dead on.
He followed him dead on.
Yeah.
And he said, and I ended up here because I fell in love with coaching. And so now I've kind of got the dream job and I feel like I'm dead-ended. And so my challenge to him was like, you don't need a new job. You simply need to get a bigger dream for the impact you have in this job.
Sure.
And when you get that kind of a purpose reignited,
yeah,
it'll carry you.
Yeah.
You know, because he's in a job he loves, but he was like, I'm feeling like I'm stuck. And I'm like, so I don't know if that helped you, but I'm like, feel life.
Yeah.
You're meant to feel life. Mm-hmm. And when the universe, I believe God, puts you in that place to where the way you're wired, what strengthens you, what gives you juice, mm-hmm. the way you're hardwired, and the opportunity intersect itself, don't miss it. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I don't know how many other moments had happened to me where God was trying to get my attention, like, Chet, you're made for more than this. But in that moment, in that week, in that time, when it was like a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And it was like an alarm going off, and I'm like, I'm not missing this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And that's just my point, like, because I've had that experience too a few times where Jake and I, you know, my best friend, we talk about these moments where once you start to open your eyes to maybe a greater purpose or something that you feel like you should be doing more of that you're not. In fact, that goes back to what we were talking about last week in our practice, the know versus doing trap.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great tool. Mm-hmm. Actually, just before I even go in, like, can you hit on what that is? Because that was very illuminating for me when you shared the knowing doing trap.
Yeah. So modern psychologists, they do a really good job of labeling things that have been truth forever.
Yeah.
And they've got one of their labels is what they call the knowing doing trap. And it is when you know something, yeah. you may even know that you want it, and yet when we look at what you're doing nothing to bring it into life.
Yeah.
And it's a trap that we all, humans all fall in different stages. It never goes away.
Yeah.
Like probably the most prevalent one in our world, in America's world today, is we know that we're getting more obese as a people. Mm. We know it. If you just put into your Amazon search fitness books or books on diet, you can't even imagine. Mm. There's more than any other topic.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
We know what we need to do.
Yeah.
But we continue to do the opposite.
Yeah.
We're continuing, you know, in my generation, when I was in high school, this 1965 stat, so I wasn't quite in high school yet, but in 65, the average American male was 5'9", $160. Hmm. Today, we're 5'10", $195. We've known that we've only added an inch, but we're putting on the pounds. Yeah. We're not doing what it is we need to do. Hmm. So we fall into that trap as individuals, as companies, communities, and there's only one way out of it. Hmm. And that is to say, I know this, and I'm going to baby step into this. Mm. We don't take giant leaps and do big things. I have a lot of clients that say, yeah, I'm going to do a marathon. Right. I'm like, okay, how many miles you run in a week? Well, I'm not running. Okay. Well, okay. That is setting yourself up to stay in the knowing doing. Because what will happen is you'll go do a big run, and then you go, I don't want to do that again.
I can totally relate to that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and then baby
Bobby
step.
knows I can relate to that, actually.
Right. We all can.
Yeah.
I mean, we all can. So no, the way out of that trap is to just baby step.
Yeah.
Micro goals, little things. Do a 2-mile run.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like what hits me when you share that, just at a personal level, was last year, my whole life I've been so active as a golfer. I mean, it was not necessarily the most physically challenging game in the world, but it certainly is mentally. And it's anybody that says it's a leisure sport has not played it at a competitive level in any capacity. But once I wasn't competing regularly and I was working in an office environment, for the vast majority of my time any week, I was lazier. I was just in an office. I was sitting down a lot. I wasn't exercising as frequently, and I was eating out of convenience a lot of the time as well. And last year, one of the things that so specifically though, what I would do is exactly what you just described, which is I would say, you know what, okay, I'm going all in CrossFit. And for 2 weeks, I'm at the gym going 5 days a week. I'm hammering it out, feeling great. But eventually, I've just disrupted my daily flow so much that I fall out of it, and I didn't really enjoy it either.
Right.
So the way I got to switch out of that was, the conclusion I came to was, well, anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to at least start by doing something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And that for me was yoga. And so I just started practicing yoga daily because, well, I enjoyed it. And it became, then eventually it became habitual because I was enjoying doing it. But even then, even in the days that I didn't necessarily look forward to it, I was still practicing yoga because I'd started to form a habit now at this point.
Yeah.
But that was, to your point about baby stepping into it, that was kind of my baby step into getting back into a regimented physical routine or fitness routine, was to just start by doing something that I enjoyed every day. It's so daunting to put on your radar that, okay, suddenly now I have to do these workouts 4 or 5 days a week, whatever it is, and just start by doing something. Anything is better than nothing. And so it's just starting off at that baby step level, like you said, and then, and you may find that you enjoy something, which is cool.
Yeah. You might stumble into it.
Right.
And so, again, when people are just trying to get moving, I'm always like, yeah, try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go do that. Play with that.
Yeah.
And the reason we call our playbooks, not workbooks, is because I want you to play with them. A workbook just sounds daunting, right? Yeah. I've got to get in the workbook. It's work. No, it's a playbook, and you're meant to play with it.
Sure.
And so with purpose, when we go back to that, for your friends who are struggling with finding it, that knowing, doing, they know they want purpose, they're not doing anything that feels purposeful, play with some of your passions. Play with some of the things that light you up. And just keep playing until something clicks in. And it will click in if you keep playing. And remind them that they're only 27 like you.
Sure. Yeah, no, there is definitely a humility that comes with recognizing, God willing, that you're still very early on in this journey.
Yeah.
And none of us know how much time we have. We had a great conversation with Lance on our podcast with him about just the finite nature of time.
Yeah.
And it being our most valuable asset. We have, because we don't know how much of it we have at the end of the day.
That's right.
And so, trying to live a life of where your time is meaningful. And for me, what's been lighting me up more and more is time that I can spend where I personally feel like I'm a part of producing something that could be helpful to someone else in some capacity. That lights me up. And that's been a lot of what Morgan and I's vision was in starting this together, too.
Yeah.
And in spirit, he's sitting here with us.
Yes.
But we'll do this again at some point when he's with us for real. But I just bring it back to that concept of purpose, and maybe even a step further into the concept of finding purpose is first how to discover who you are. That was, I feel like, on the journey for me of finding a deeper purpose and meaning in my life. I feel like the first step in that journey is starting to ask the question to myself of, well, who am I? What do I believe in? And I'm curious how that lands with you and the work that you do, if that's a starting point for people that are starting to ask that question about purpose in their own life or what meaning is to them and so on.
Yeah. Well, let me first hit on the time thing.
Yeah, please.
And then I'm going to ask you that question.
Okay.
I love studying history, and the ancient Greeks were really tuned into time. And they have two good words. One is chronos, where we get the English word chronometer. You're wearing one. And it tells us about the measurement of time. A watch.
Yep.
Right? Chronos. And they also had a word called kairos. Kairos is a season of time. Kairos moments are like that time I told you about at the Center for Creative Leadership at age 34, where that was not a Chronos moment for me. That was Kairos. It was a season of time, and I believe it was a divine appointment of time. And you and I and all of humanity have Chronos, and we have Kairos. And the Kairos moments are the ones you'll never forget. Your life, when you get to my age and beyond, the only thing you're going to want to do is create more Kairos.
Yeah.
It's like redeeming time. And so I spend a lot of time not thinking about how I'm investing my time, but I'm thinking about creating Kairos moments with my son, my daughter, with my clients. Like, this is a Kairos moment.
Yeah, it is.
You know, having dinner following this will be another Kairos moment. Those aren't like every day. We've never had dinner.
Yeah.
We're having dinner today.
That's
true.
true.
A Kairos moment.
Yeah.
And through the history of time, by the way, an awful lot of Kairos moments originate around a campfire and food.
Yeah.
Where people slowed down and they took the time to really talk and discover like who each other is. Because you don't really do this discovery of who you are on your own. And in America, we're really about the lone wolf. And the truth is that the discovery process is a team game.
It's so true, too, that that's an American thing.
Yes.
I mean, when you travel, especially, I feel, Europe is very much this way as well, and you travel to Italy and you meet, cultures and from Greece or whomever it may be, but I really always think about, Latins and the South American culture, which I'm very close to with friends and relationship, and they have such a kindred family spirit, this familial bond that just always comes back to the grandmother or whomever it is, the patriarch in their family that just keeps them together. But it's interesting you say America, because that is so true. The consumer just monster of the United States is so built around that lone wolf mentality. It's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would encourage, again, you.
Yeah.
Don't obsess about how much time you have. Create more Kairos. To me, that is how we redeem time. And I believe the Greeks got that right. Life is, at the end of the day, you will look back on not how you spent your time, but how many Kairos moments you created that made it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then how that ties to purpose is this whole, that's the whole point of the Built to Lead framework, is so you can discover core purposes, which is kind of the second half of the BTL six-pack. So the first process that we employ in our framework for helping our clients figure out who they are is start with, what do you believe? So you have a worldview. Worldview, by definition, is a basic set of beliefs through which one makes sense of their world. So Bobby has a worldview, right? And his worldview led him to work in a gym, and his worldview led him to leave a gym and begin his own business, right? When you look at humans' behaviors and they say they want to change them, I always go back to, what do they believe? All right, if we change the belief, the behavior just follows.
Yeah.
And it feels just like it's just clicking in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I don't like behavior modification because that feels hard. But if I just want to live, like, let's just get clear on, what do you really believe?
Yeah.
And then we align behaviors to that.
Yeah.
So the first step to figuring out who you are is knowing you have a belief system. Let's make it conscious. Most of us have a belief system that's just based on mom and dad, our country,
Sure.
America lone wolf,
Yeah.
Latin all family. It's a belief system. I don't want it to just be based on your ethnicity. I want it to be based on you.
Yeah.
So I do want you to do that work
I love that.
on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And figure out, like, oh, look at the deer.
Yeah, we were open when we walked by. Oh, that's great.
Love that. And so the first step is figuring out yourself is figuring out, what do you believe?
Yeah.
Secondly, what are the names you call yourself? your identity, your I ams.
Yep.
So the first one is your I believes.
Yep.
Next, your I ams. What are these identities? Golfer.
And literally in statement form.
In statement form.
I believe X.
I
am Y.
This. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
Yeah.
All right. And then the third piece, what we call the WIP, the work in process, the WIP. Worldview, identity, and then your principles. What are the values that mean the most to you?
Yeah.
Right? And are you living them? And are you closing your integrity gaps where you say one thing and you do another, right? Or are you just focused on others? Because most of us in the world, we point out others' integrity gaps while never looking in the mirror to see our own.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So we know who others are or who we think they are.
Yeah.
And we're fixated on that, especially it's a celebrity culture now more than ever.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to put their best foot forward on social media, which I don't, I know this secondhand because I'm not on that. And very little time looking in the mirror, figuring out who they are. So our framework starts with, stop looking out the window and let's look in the mirror and go, what's my worldview? When was the last time that I looked at it, reflected on it, and made sure it's true? What are my identities, the names I call myself? Am I living them? What are my principles, the values that mean the most? Am I aligning my day with them? That's the WIP.
Yeah.
Then the second half, which is powerful too, you need all six, are what are my passions? What are my love tos?
Yeah.
And so then we write, I love to play golf, eat steak, you know what I mean? Whatever,
Sure. Yeah,
whatever they are.
Yep.
And we write them all out and we start to employ more of our passions. And the passions are a trigger for these purposes. There will never be a purpose that is an authentic purpose for you that you don't get energy from.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it comes back to love.
It comes back to
If
love.
you love doing something, the passion's easy to follow behind it.
That's right.
It's not even easy. It's natural.
It's natural.
Yeah.
So passions fuel then your first swing at what are my core purposes?
Yeah.
My purpose for being here, for being on the planet,
Yeah.
right? My purpose for relationship, my purpose for work,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
We write those. And then the final P, this is the 3P, so it's the WIP and the 3P. The final P is the process. How do you tighten it all up? How do you make sure that this isn't just a theory,
Yeah.
but this is actually practically applied? So the process is the final P, and if it's neglected, then we didn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally, it does. I mean, it's an incredible framework to be able to. First off, it's not an easy framework to build into. I mean,
Not designed to be.
You're correct. Yeah.
Why is it not designed to be?
Why is it not designed to be?
Yeah,
easy?
why didn't I design an easy button and make Built to Lead like a pill? Why did we go with something difficult?
Sure.
Why do you think?
I think to live a truly authentic life that is one that you are living for yourself, that you believe in,
Yeah.
is choosing the hard road in life. There's a great, saying that we've used that, is mass attracts mass,
Yeah.
right? Mass follows mass.
Yes.
And so why is it hard? Well, it's because it is the hard road, right? You go back to the Robert Frost poem, right? Is it?
Give it to me.
That there's two paths, or a road diverged as one. What's the poem?
You're doing
I'm
good.
around
I
there.
don't know, you're good.
And I chose the one less traveled on.
That's right. That's M. Scott Peck.
Got it.
The opening to his book, The Road Less Traveled.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember from the book that I will take to my grave.
Yeah.
Remember the first
I know
line?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it?
First sentence: life is hard.
Life is hard.
You close the book.
Close the book. We're done.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
And so I come back to my belief system is the good life can be easy. If all you want is a good life, you don't need Built to Lead. And you don't need purpose. You just need pleasure and comfort. That'll give you a good life. It'll be nice for a while, all right? But I believe that a great life, which I believe is what we're designed for, we're designed by a great God who made us in greatness to pursue it. And so a great life is learning to do hard things well. Slowly, over time, through a lot of baby steps.
Yeah.
That's a great life.
Yeah.
So that's why the Built to Lead framework, I got to be true to my belief. My belief is that life is designed to be hard.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing within that design.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of people that believe life is a 2-step, 6-step, 12-step, 5-step process. Follow this, and I don't buy that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I believe it's way more difficult.
Yeah.
And way more of high design.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to figure out the way you're designed. Mm. And you've been designed different than the way I am. Mm-hmm. We have so much in common, yet we're so unique. Like, it's so beautiful. But your job is to figure out what clicks with your design, so that you don't fight it. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
And so many people just live the purpose of their people, of their parents, and at some point they throw up their arms and go, "That's not me." Mm. And oftentimes we refer to that as a midlife crisis, or
sure,
but it's really just the person discovering that they're acting in a default, not by design.
And when you say that we call them like a midlife crisis or something, or could even be a quarter life crisis or whatever it may be.
They're very true.
The question I have in it is, though, why so oftentimes does it take some massive event to disrupt our life and start to look in the mirror and find this greater meaning that we're looking for within ourselves? Mm-hmm. Is there a way? And actually, I recently heard this spoken about by the author of the book Mastery, Robert Greene.
Oh yeah, good book.
And he actually totally dispelled this in saying, like, no, there really isn't a way to do it unless something great happens in your life or something terrible that really disrupts you, and something forces you into this greater question. I thought that was pretty harsh, but he's, of course, known to come out and say, things very directly in his beliefs.
I like that.
And I like that too. But I'm curious if you believe you can start to go down that road in looking inward before having such a massive life event that causes you, like the loss of a loved one or a terrible accident or a loss of a job or these huge life events that put us into transition, right?
Oh, yeah. So the reason I am doing Built to Lead is for that very reason.
Yeah.
That is, he's accurate, that most of us don't wake up without the 2x4 to the head. So Built to Lead, what we're trying to do is help our clients wake up before the universe will get your attention and wake you up the hard way. A lot of my clients tell me, you're kind of like, you're not exactly an easy way to wake up, Chet. And I'm like, I'm a lot easier than divorce, than death, than disease, than a lot of losses that the universe is surely going to send your way. And at that point, you're going to go, what the fuck? Is this all there is? Mm. And so with Built to Lead, what we're trying to do is we create a Kairos moment by you doing discovery and answering 81 hard questions. And then going through the process of building your core. Very hard.
Yep.
And you're waking up to, my gosh, I believe this, I'm not. It's a gentle wake up compared to the universe, but it's not an easy wake up.
Sure.
And so that is exactly what Built to Lead is trying to do, is play the role of the universe with not quite such a heavy stick.
Yeah.
And so I would say, why do we need all that? In the history of time, a lot of people woke up through suffering because the life in the first century was frickin' hard. In the 15th century, 17th, it was frickin' hard. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's more difficult now for us because life is easy.
Yeah.
And we are soft.
It's so, yeah.
I'm so much softer. My mom and dad grew up, I told you in the beginning of this, Great Depression, Dust Bowl.
Right.
Their parents grew up, my mom's side, they were sharecroppers in Germany. Mm. They left to they never could get land in Germany. They were too poor. And they'd heard Russia is offering land where you can go farm. Catherine, the Great was ruling, and she enticed lots of Germans to go, and they got there, and she said, it's not your land. Changed the gig.
Wow.
So now they're sharecropping out of their country. They muscle all their money together and get on a boat to come to America because they hear in America you can actually own a farm. So they go to New York. They land in New York. Hard family, big family, right? And land there, the Krause get crazy jobs to make money, to get enough money to get a wagon train to Great Bend, Kansas. And they eventually get one. A few years in New York, they end up in Great Bend, Kansas, and they start the Krause farm, the family farm, as a land grab. They staked their claim.
Yep.
These are hard-ass people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then the Depression, the Dust Bowl hit, and they don't leave. Tons did. They stayed.
Yeah.
That farm got built, that family got settled, and that's my heritage. And it's progressively gotten softer. And I'm the epitome of soft.
Yeah.
And so, and then my kids are softer yet. And so, why do we need wake-up calls? Because life has gotten very comfortable and convenient and consumed. And that's not been the truth for the history of time. It's a very relatively new phenomenon. It used to be we all had to work, and we mostly found purpose through suffering.
Right.
And so now, heck, even our workouts, I have to create suffering in our workouts.
Sure.
You know, I have to make those hard because most workouts now are pretty dang easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And back in the day, my parents, grandparents, they didn't work out, they worked. And it was physical labor.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So, I don't know, that was maybe a long-winded answer, but the answer to why do we need those wake-up calls, I do believe the universe is going to deliver them, but I also believe our framework helps because the framework will make you less soft. And that's all I'm after. I just want to be less soft. I'm never going to be as hard as the Krause relatives that dealt with all that.
Yeah.
But I want to be less soft.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the trend that things are on too. It certainly doesn't feel like the trend of our society is going anywhere better in this case of this conversation. There was a book Bobby and I were talking about prior to this that's been kind of a hot topic lately, The Coddling of the American Mind.
I love that book.
Yeah.
Love that book.
And, this is a...
Did I tell you to read that, or did you read that on your own?
I haven't read it yet, no.
Oh, you haven't read it? Oh, it's a great book. That'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
It's a book for your listeners, written by a couple profs in our college system. Yeah. And they're writing about the system and how we're coddling college kids.
Yeah.
As the opposite of university was supposed to be where we made them think. And we put them through hardship so they could get a difficult degree for the few. And now we're basically coddling them. And they are indicting their own system, and they're in it. It's really, really well done. It'll make you shake your head, though.
Yeah.
And I see it at OSU. I've been working, you mentioned I work with Ohio State. I've been working with athletes there for over a decade.
Right.
And I have noticed an increase in softness in the athletes coming in to a high-powered Division I school.
Sure.
They're not the same as a decade.
Yeah.
It's just a decade.
Yeah.
Well,
this technology's only been around for 10, 15 years, social media and mass adoption. I mean, the early 10s, this really, started to take shape. And so it makes sense that just in 10 years, and we really, the question then is you zoom out on that landscape, right? You zoom out 40, 50, 60 years. What does the mind start to look like? How do the questions start to swirl in people's heads? I mean, one of the things I had for our conversation today, actually, I was reading this morning in Axios, and the U.S. Surgeon General came out with a plea to have a warning label that would come up when you open up any social media app, right? A warning label would appear like what we have on a cigarette box.
Right.
Right? Just to wake up to the fact that this has harmful effects.
Yeah.
Right? And we're living these now. And that book, it sounds like, is a tremendous example of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So one of the other pieces to our framework for discovering who you are and discovering why you're here is for you to get comfortable with pen and paper. Reading books like that and then writing as you read is the completion of really reading the book.
Yeah.
So we've not been taught recently how to read a book. So Mortimer Adler, back in the 60s, saw this coming and he wrote a book. You know what it's titled? How to Read a Book. He wrote another good one back then. He was a college prophet in Chicago.
Yeah.
He wrote another one, How to Speak and Listen. Oh man, do our young people need to read both of those.
Wow.
Texting is not speaking and listening.
No.
And
I'm going to add those to my list.
they're good.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to become more influential over you, which by the way is every human's job, to be the greatest influence in your life. If you're going to live great, if Bobby is going to go from this to whatever is his next Kairos moment, or for his true opus, whatever it is, he's going to have to influence himself because the world is going to try to influence him to just stick it out.
Yeah.
Just do this. Make this be your contribution. The world doesn't care that you find your passions and your purpose and tie them together.
Sure.
They just want you to do something and be productive.
Right.
You, if you're going to be great, have to be the greatest influence in your life. And so the truth is that 100 years ago, 200 years ago, the greatest influence in the life of an average American was pretty much the same. So if I were to interview you going back in time 200 years, hey, little Jaggy, tell me, what are the two greatest influences in your life? You would have told me, same for Bobby, faith, whatever it's in, family. 100 years ago, same thing. 50, same thing. Today, and Gallup does all this stuff.
Yeah.
Today, when they ask, tell me, young man, what are the two greatest influences in your life? Faith and family are not in the top 10
Wow.
today.
And that's how quickly that shifted?
It's shifted.
Holy
Faith
cow.
and family don't make the top 10. You know what's number one by a mile?
They're friends.
No. But you're close.
Social media?
Social media.
Yeah.
So the number one influence in the life of an average American is the media they give their eyeballs to. So I always tell my clients, if they're struggling with figuring out what's influencing them, why are they doing this? Hand me your phone.
Yeah.
I just look at your apps.
Yeah.
It tells me everything.
Yeah.
The greatest influence in the life of an average, think about that. Social frickin' media. These aren't even your friends. These aren't even your acquaintances. These are strangers mostly. And if they don't like your shit, or they do like your shit, you're influenced by that.
Sure. Yeah.
Second is the culture where you work. It could be your sport, your occupation, whatever. Those are the two greatest influences. Because now, today, in our world, people say they work all the time. So that culture really infiltrates them.
Sure.
So if you're going to be great, you got to fight that. Those are not the greatest influences meant to make you great.
Right.
They're meant to make you follow whomever wants you to do what they want you to do on social media.
Yeah.
And they make you want to buy into a culture someplace where the most important thing is, have you figured out your culture? Do you know the culture in your 20 square feet?
Right.
Not the company's, yours.
Yours.
And yours is a reflection of your core and your opus, which we'll get to another podcast.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean,
and so the only way to get that is to start to write and write and write. So there's two ways for you to become more influential in your life. Number one is to write, which is why every client like you writes their worldview. I don't just have you think about it.
Yeah.
You write it.
Yep.
And then you rinse it, and then you write it again.
Yep.
And then I make you tell me about it. And then I tell you to tell Jake.
Yeah. Yeah. And write daily, by the way, as
And
well.
write daily.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, hey, tell your dad, tell your mom, tell Camille, tell whomever. Let them know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because the other way that you can greatly increase your influence over you is to write about like who I am and what do I want, and then broadcast it.
Sure.
Because the more you tell people, like, this is who I am, hold me accountable to this, or give me courage, I'm struggling with this, but I really want to be this.
Sure.
The more you tell people, the more this psyche of yours says, Jaggy, we're on the hook. You have written this, and you have broadcast it. Don't be a what?
Yep.
What does your brain say? Don't be a
wimp, a cop-out.
The word I use, good choice, more modern. The word's an old one. Don't be a hypocrite.
Sure.
Because you don't want to be a bullshit artist.
Sure.
And you really don't.
Yeah.
So if you write it and you say it, you're more likely to behave it just because of the way your brain works.
Sure.
Isn't that great?
You don't want to disappoint.
You don't want to disappoint yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
But at least then you're having a social effect that's positive on you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
It's interesting because, we talk about all of the terrible sides of social media, and I always go back to like social media as a tool, as it was invented, was an amazing concept.
Great tool.
The ability to connect. You and I, we went to school together, and now you live in Oregon and I live in North Carolina, but we can somehow keep in touch with one another. But then, of course, it has to be mass manipulated to draw the eyes in more. And I think a great saying you can always go back to is, if something is for free, you are the product.
Right.
Right? But I also
That's a good
think,
one.
yeah, it's a great line.
That's a good one.
And it's applicable in almost every sense. But social media, though, can also be a very liberating tool if you truly live and broadcast who you truly are and you showcase it.
That's right.
And in the eyes of golf, like in the golf world, we've just had an incredible example of that this weekend in Bryson DeChambeau winning.
Yeah.
Like, talk about someone who's had a 180 in their public persona.
Yeah.
This was like one of the most, down on popular opinion guys for, not long ago. I'm talking a year and a half ago, has started to totally broadcast himself on YouTube and make all these fun videos and start to really showcase his full personality. But he's really just being himself. Like,
That's right.
Bryson loves golf. And we kind of typecast him as this nerd who was way too technical, and he just loves golf, this guy. And he's been able to showcase that so well in his social media, and people have started to buy into it. And he's built this great following on social media. And he, yesterday in his press conferences, he proclaimed that journey he's been on with YouTube has been a huge reason for his success and growth as a person. It's because he's really bought into who he is, and he's chosen to use social media as a tool to help grow the game of golf, but by being himself.
Yeah.
And so...
That's a great example.
But really what you said back there is really interesting earlier about social media can lead you down this path of so easily thinking you need to be something else, right? And if you're not, identifying those core principles as to who you are, who you are as a true individual being, asking yourself those questions, it's not an easy question and it's not going to come overnight. But if you start to ask yourself and you look in the mirror and really look into yourself, who are you? What do you believe in? Not what does mom say you should believe in, or dad, or some things you can agree with that are great. Yeah. But when you believe in something, there is so much more power behind that statement. Mm-hmm. And so the work is the hard road, like you said, without question. It is the hard road, but probably one of the most illuminating things you said so far in the conversation is it's the hard road that leads you down, avoiding the much harder conclusions that you can reach in life if you don't lead a truly authentic life.
Another one of my I believes, you can do what is easy now and life will get hard. You can do what is hard now and life will get easier. I believe that. And so I always want my clients and myself to not hit the easy button. Choose what's hard now. I mean, that's just mom. That's my mom in my ear saying, do the hard things first, Chester.
Yeah.
And save the easy ones for later on. Well, it's just so true. And Bryson's that's a great example. So why are you doing this work?
Specifically, our work together or the podcast?
Why are you doing this work on you?
I am a deeply curious person in general. I am deeply curious about life. The more I dive in, whether it's to history or a passion of mine, the more illuminated I get. I've very much been on a journey of looking for that deeper meaning in life. I feel like that's beyond money or stature in any capacity, but really learning like what is the authentic life that I want to live. I feel like I've been a pretty self-conscious person, and still am, by the way.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that most wouldn't expect, because I come off as a pretty confident person, and I'm social and outgoing. But I care a ton about what other people think. And I feel like part of the reason why I'm doing the work we're doing together, which just happens to be together, but it's really just the work I feel like I'm doing on me, right?
Yeah.
Is because I want to be able to live a life, and I feel like I'm starting to lead a life where I wake up and it's something that I truly feel I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this because I want this person over here to say good job.
Right.
Accolades feel great, and I want to do things that provide that. Sure, but I really, I'm building and designing a life that I feel like is truly authentic to me.
Why not take it easy and enjoy your good fortune? I mean, you could have it easy.
Yeah.
Why don't you do that?
I feel like I've been extremely blessed in my life to have a loving family, to have a supportive family, to have had good fortune at a young age at a business level, and to have experienced a lot of the pleasures in life too, traveling, partying, whatever it may be. I've yet to wake up after a day of just pleasure and say, oh, that just was amazing and I'm good, I want to do that again.
Right.
Like, there is a deeper, and you know what, it's interesting you ask that. Like, what's coming up for me is I feel like I fell in love with a passion at such a young age, and that was the game of golf.
Right.
At the age of 12, I was introduced to tournament golf by actually a man who we just lost in this world, Larry Dornish, head pro Muirfield Village Golf Club, one of my longest mentors and like father figures at the golf course. I just have infinite love for him, and we share in that together. But he introduced me to tournament golf.
Right.
And the first tournament I ever played in, I thought I was pretty damn good at golf, right? Everybody told me I was great. I'm 12 years old.
Yeah, right.
Right. And he's like, you know what? You seem like you're really taking a liking to this. If you're going to play golf, you got to play tournament golf. So he signs me up for my first tournament.
He signed you up.
He signs me up. It's a Central Ohio PGA event, junior PGA event at Golf Club of Dublin. Show up, confident as hell, shoot 98. Felt pretty good. I was in the hunt with the kids I played with. Let's say they each shot like 92, 95. So they beat me, but I was right there with them. Anyway, there was like 32 kids in the tournament, and I finished dead last, and like 68 won. And I just had no idea that that's what good was. Like, I thought I was good because everybody said I was, and that was it. And it was a wake-up call. And I came home that night, and I said to my parents, this is all I'm going to do. The summer just started. Like, if I can, I want to play golf every day, and I just want to get better at this. And so I did. And that summer, let's say I went from a 25 handicap to a 6 at the end of the summer.
Dang.
It was epic. But my point in bringing that story up is I found a love at such a young age, right? A reason to wake up and just frickin' get after it every day, right? And that carried with me for a really long time. I played golf all through high school, through college. And when I transitioned out of playing full-time into working at JEGS, that was such an easy passion for me. I grew up around this business. I had this familial connection to it. It was a really exciting time, and I came into just absolutely loving that. And I woke up with fire every day, and being a part of, running this company, and since selling the company and transitioning out of it and kind of starting to go down this path of what's next, I've had a lot of mornings where I wake up and I don't have that fire. I don't have that, that love for something and once you've felt it before,
Yeah.
it's really hard to not have it to wake up to again. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of the reason for the work I'm doing too, is I'm looking for that fire every day to wake up, and I'm getting there. I feel like there's different things I'm doing, whether it's this podcast and creating a forum to where we can have great conversations and share them. That's been exciting. Yeah. Golf, getting back into that's been a big thing for me. But the work is, I've certainly known in my life that when I have been committed to something and have a goal that I'm working towards, those have been the happiest and most fulfilled moments of my life. Far more than when I've had an incredible high when I'm traveling somewhere and seeing something in even a luxurious way. But the best high I had in 2023 was at a podunk golf course where I just won a qualifier to go to the U.S. Mid-Am, awesome. Like because of the work that it took to build into it. Right. And that was my high of the year, no question. It wasn't sitting on the mountaintop in New Zealand, which was amazing. I loved it. Yeah. But it's not fulfilling like knowing I worked for something for 3 months straight and did it.
The happiest moments are rooted in commitment. Yeah. In America, we overvalue freedom. Yeah. And we think if I just had more freedom, if I could be freer, I'd be so happy. And yet the truth is, the absolute truth is, the happiest people on the planet, America or wherever else, are the most committed. Yeah. And they freely chose their commitment to work, to life, to marriage, to faith, to family. And so I think you're really on the journey, little Jaggy. Like, you're making progress. Man, it's fun to watch. It gives me a lot of energy. Seeing someone like you, who's so much younger than me, and yet we're on a similar journey together, which fits the whole purpose for why I started Built to Lead. The premise is, throughout the history of time, humans that lived really well never did it in isolation. And so our tagline is, together we transform. And by that I mean together. Like, it's not we transform you. It is together we transform each other. And I believe that is, when you commit to that, that's when your relationships start to really develop a depth. Again, you're not trying to change another. That'll drive you nuts. But you're on a transformational process, and another is helping you, and you are helping them. That's symbiotic. That's a beautiful thing. And when you commit to that with others, that's my whole life. I just am committed to that kind of transformation with those that put their trust in us. Yeah.
We'll go back to, because
we're out of time.
We're almost out of time.
We got to be out of time.
We're almost out of time.
Bobby, how much time do we have?
Just 4 hours.
No, we don't.
But you bring up the tagline of Built to Lead.
Yeah.
Just, you got to give it to me full stop. It's so good.
Well, the purpose of Built to Lead?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the purpose of Built to Lead, our purpose statement, which will be rinsed and is continually rinsed, but the current version is to get, and this is right on our website, together we awaken, capital A, challenge, capital C, and transform, capital T, a few individuals, teams, and leaders from alone toward all one, period, one L of a difference. Together we, did I skip something? I just
No, you hit it.
Together we transform, always together. For some reason my mind blanked on that.
The key is, though, is from alone to all one.
Toward all one.
One L of a difference.
Yeah. What's the L?
Love.
Yeah. Play on words. Yep. It's so true. Yep. And so, what do we know about love? It's a lot riskier than fear. Yeah. Most humans just live their whole life fueled by fear because it's actually safer than taking the risk to love. C.S. Lewis quote on that we won't get into, but we've talked about that one.
Well, let's, in typical I Can Fly fashion, Though this, I hope, will be the first of many installments together in this. Because, like you said, we are on a journey and working together, which is transforming us each together. And I think to share in part of that journey with our listeners and our community, who I'm sure will be lit up in some questions. And, we've discovered some beautiful topics around meaning and purpose and time. I thought that was a beautiful, passage around Kairos and creating those moments like we are right here tonight. But I do want to ask you before we go, when I say the words "I can fly" to you, what does that mean to you? Or has there been a time in your life where you felt that meaning?
I feel like I feel it all the time. I feel like the only time I don't feel that is when I'm tired. But like when I got up this morning, before my feet hit the carpet, I went through my little gratitude practice of thanking God that I woke up, because there's no guarantee you wake up. So I start my day off, and that kind of makes me fly. Like I open my eyes and I'm here. And then I remind myself of my core and why I'm here. And I just play it out in my mind. I don't have to read it. It's now etched. But before I put those little toes of mine on the carpet, I remind myself of, this is great, Chet. You woke up again. Now, why are you here? Remind yourself, because you need reminders. And then I play my day out. And I ask God to help me be like full on wherever I'm going, be fully in it. And that I pray that I will be a good ambassador for Him, and that I will ask for His help, and that I will listen for His lead. And every time I'm doing my work, I feel that. So I don't feel like I'm doing this work on my own. I feel like there's a spirit in me that's moving me, and I just try to listen to it. And the more I've gotten older and tuned into that, the more I feel like light. Like in every sense of the meaning of that word, light. And it doesn't mean I don't have heavy moments in the day. I do, but I just quickly slip into my gratitude, my prayer, and I'm lifted up again. And I don't know that I would say I can fly, but I feel light. And I guess when you're flying, you probably
gotta feel pretty light.
Gotta feel pretty light.
Yeah.
And when I put my head on that pillow, like I will tonight, I will pray another prayer of gratitude for this day. And then I'll take my CBD chew and a little magnesium, because I've had to figure out how to get the cortisol in my system out, because I get wound up during the day. And I get lit up, and I for a long time after doing this work, I had a hard time sleeping. So I played around with lots of different ways and I stumbled onto that, and I'll close my eyes, and I'll look forward to doing it again.
Amen. Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered that. I didn't probably answer that the way you were looking for, but I would say, since discovering my passions and my purpose and living my core toward my opus, I feel like I'm flying.
I think if you're living a life that's authentic to you, and you're getting to then share in that too and help others, well, I mean, that is by every definition flying in my eyes. That's a beautiful thing. And then beyond that too.
And I get to have good food with my wife's a great chef.
Yeah.
And I get to hang out with her after I do the work. I go home, she's into what I'm doing, and we sit around. She doesn't have wine, but I'll have wine and her good steak. And that feels like I'm flying, with her.
Sure.
And our kids are all gone now, but the two of us are still flying.
I love it. I love it.
In fact, to Europe soon.
Yes, you are. Yeah, a couple days. For those that are listening and learning more about Built to Lead, you can go to the website, which is
Built to Lead, just as you'd spell it,
Yep.
.com.
Got it. And then beyond that, there's an incredible book that Chet wrote himself, which is a daily discipline called Becoming Built to Lead. It's 365 daily disciplines to master the art of living. And every day I wake up and read whatever day it is. So for today, for example, it was day 213. I read the passage that was and the theme that it was today, and then I write my responses to it. And it's a beautiful way to get in touch with learning how to really just write in general, because it's prompted. Sometimes it's hard to get into journaling because you don't really know where to go with it. You've never really written kind of freely before. And so to have a book that's kind of helping illuminate those thoughts for you, helping look inward. Chet does an amazing job at asking questions that really lead you into yourself and discovering who you are, and eventually mastering the art of what living is for you. So check out the book, Becoming Built to Lead, and hopefully this is the start of several more of these together. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Cool.
We'll do it again.